I know a lot of you folks dream of being on a large piece of property and starting their own farm or homestead. It's important for you to know what the differences are between city living and country living.
I ain't afraid of work. I ain't afraid of play. I ain't afraid to get the job done and do it my own damn way. I ain't afraid of life. Times like this. You mess with my freedom, I'll tell you just what you can kiss. That's right.
Yeah, baby. There's no feeling like that in the world, man. All right, guys, welcome back to the Stoney Ridge Farm channel. If this is your first time or your 50 millionth time, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you back here. There's so much information and so much fun going on here all the time on the Stoney Ridge Farm. So my name's Josh, and we're on a 150-acre first-generation farm in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina. Here's my scenario. I dreamed of building a farm. I watched folks on the internet like Greg Judy and Joel Salatin and all these guys, and if you don't know who they are, I'll post links down in the video description. You can watch these guys. Gabe Brown, there's all sorts of information, and what I was really into was permaculture. I was really into gardening. I was really into natural systems. I was really into holistic ways of growing plants, growing garden vegetables, and I was really interested in intensive rotational grazing, and that's why I got into farming. It was my science project. So I'm a registered nurse. I'm a registered nurse of about 15 years now. I worked in the intensive care unit for around 13 years, and now I'm full-time here on the Stoney Ridge Farm. I create content for you guys to learn and grow and build your property and enjoy and live the farm life vicariously through me. And I also raise beef cattle and chickens. We sell eggs, we sell beef, we sell cows, we do all that stuff. I say we, you and I. It's just me here on the Stoney Ridge Farm. We'll talk a little bit about that, the stresses of building a place like this, what ripped my marriage apart. It's sad, it's unbelievable, it's hard for me to even fathom. But on the first date with my previous wife, I told her I want to move back to the country, I want to start a farm. This is a dream of mine that's been in place for 20 years, and I wanted to do it, I wanted to build it. Are you on board or not? This was first date. She was on board, now she's gone. Boop. That happens. I don't know. Farm life is hard work, guys. When it comes down to it, if you want to leave behind your job in town, your cushy job in town where you punch a clock, you make a living, you're guaranteed whatever it is, you're trading your time for financial gain, it's great. There's no such thing as trading your time for financial gain here on a farm, okay? It doesn't matter how many hours you work. You're going to make the same amount of money. You've got to think things through. You've got to be sharp. You've got to be smart. And you've got to build it in the most affordable manner that you possibly can. So the lifestyle changes that I went through building this farm and quitting my city job were fantastic. They were awesome, but they were huge challenges. I went from working a 12-hour day, 3 days a week in the hospital as a registered nurse to working a 15-hour to 16, 18-hour day, 7 days a week here on the Stoney Ridge Farm. Just building this farm took so much time and so much money. So I started building a social media following along with the farm. And every bit of the money that I earned on social media went right back into the property. So I lived off of my nursing income. I worked as a full-time nurse, and I worked here on the farm full-time, and I was publishing these videos, which help other people learn. Along with that, I took every bit of the money that I made from social media, I dumped it back into the farm to help build the farm. Make no mistake, I've got well over $600,000 invested in building this farm. So the way this worked was, one of my patients in the hospital was selling this property that we're on right now. It's 60 acres. This 60 acres back in the day was only $2,000 an acre. And if you're looking for affordable land that's usable to build a place like this, you're probably gonna have to move away from where you live, and you're gonna have to suck it up and understand country culture. You ain't gonna be able to go out and get sushi every night. Okay? You're just not going to be able to do that. Country living is awesome. It's super rewarding, but it does come with some inconveniences, I should say. So I only live about 5 or 10 minutes from my local Walmart, from my local Lowe's. I'm pretty close to everything. So when you're going to buy a piece of property like this, you don't want to be an hour from town. If you're an hour from town, you really have to plan how you get your groceries, how you have everything delivered out to the farm, whether it's Amazon, and you have to plan your trips to town, your social trips also. So when you're on a farm like this, you're on a large piece of property and you're pretty much isolated from the rest of the world. It's super rewarding, but at times you can become quite lonely and quite distant and quite separated from the rest of society. Now, is that why you're buying land? Probably so. But at some point in your life, when you have a large piece of property like this and you're building a farm, there's going to come a time where you wish you were in a place that was more convenient. Having a spouse on board with you is super important, guys. Super, super important. The inconvenience of driving to work from where we live. Work was about 45 minutes for me and 45 minutes for my spouse. Just that drive time is an hour and a half per day when you have to punch the clock. That weighs heavy on you. Sometimes that helps clear your mind a little bit. And having a little bit of socialization, you will develop social groups within your rural community, more so than you would develop a social group in your neighborhood or in your urban or suburban community. It's super important to develop those relationships and take some time for yourself. So we did a video a while back about the stresses of farming and about how farming can make you feel isolated and you can feel like you're a prisoner to your farm. So the second thing that I suggest is that you don't become a prisoner to your farm. As you build this, don't build it to the point where you are supremely overwhelmed and pushed to the point of breaking. You've got to take time for yourself. You have to establish community in your rural country place where you're going to be moving to. So you have someone to help you, to look after the land. You get a cow out, you need to call a neighbor. Hey, man, or your neighbors will be calling you. Go around to all your neighbors, give them your phone number because you're going to have livestock that get out. You will. It's going to happen. So I would say that more so in a country situation like this, community is super important. 60 acres here, 90 acres across the way. You can see way out there. That's my land too. That's where the cows will be grazing. We're actually moving the cows over to that side of the farm later on this afternoon. It's always something to do. There's always work to do. There's always that feeling of being behind and being ground into the ground. So you've really got to take time and take care of yourself and build community within your rural lifestyle. So if you're changing from city life to country life, it's a whole nother world. Things that I didn't really think about when I moved up here was weather. You know, as a urbanite living in town, and I grew up on a farm, I knew about weather and I knew how it all affected everything, but I was a kid, right? I didn't pay very much attention to that stuff. I got up, hey, and listened to what my dad told me to do, and I did it, right? Moving up here to the country, weather is super important. Weather puts a hang up in your day way more so than it does if you live in town. Think about this. If it's pouring down rain or snowing or something like that and you live in town, what? Somebody else comes and scrapes your road. Ain't nobody gonna scrape my road. Nobody's gonna scrape my driveway. I got a half a mile long driveway. I gotta do it. Somebody else is gonna shovel, well, you're gonna have a sidewalk that's 45 feet long versus this monstrosity to shovel out. So you've got to think about all the maintenance that goes into a large piece of property like this. 60 acres here, 90 acres there. When it comes to buying land, the best piece of advice I can give you is make sure it's not steep, it's not goat land, it's not super, super rocky, and that you have water in place. Whether it's ponds, whether it's creeks. We've got 6 creeks on this property and 3 ponds, and I'm going to build 2 more ponds. Super important when you buy a piece of property like this to have water on the land and to keep water on the land. The entire purpose of the grass out here in these pastures is to keep water on the land. It's super important. So what can you expect? The first thing you're going to expect is a culture change. There's going to be a bit of a culture change in your life when it comes to moving to a rural place like this. The culture change is going to be the food quality that you're used to in town ain't going to be the same out in the country. It just isn't going to be the same. Do you know your next door neighbor? You better be nice to your neighbor. I'm going to tell you right now, love thy neighbor, because if you don't love thy neighbor, it's going to make your life completely miserable. This is a permanent place for you to live, not like your neighborhood that you live in town, where you might move out in 2 years. Know your neighbor and love your neighbor. Look for a property that has plenty of water. Understand that your life is going to be majorly inconvenienced, and be sure that your spouse is on board. As I built this farm over time, I realized a lot of things about myself, how I can improve as a person. I've realized a lot of things about seasons and about land and about the way systems work, about senescence, about the changes in the weather, about the changes in the seasons, about how grass grows up and dies. You don't even think about this. If you're living in town, you go to the grocery store, go to Costco, you buy yourself some beef, right? Well, how did that cow eat? These cows eat grass. Grass don't grow in the wintertime, right? We got to think about that. $10,000 a year, and hey, that's a Honda Civic, right? So guys, I just wanted to give you a little bit of food for thought here. Be sure if you're deciding to try and embark on a rural journey like this, that your spouse is on board with it, that you're on board with it, and understand that your life is going to take a monumental shift and a monumental change, and it's going to be uncomfortable for you at first. But you will grow to love this place. You will grow to love the place that you build and you call home, and that's your permanent home. Starting a farm like this is taking a massive amount of money. I'm in my 8th year, and I'm finally earning a small profit. It's something that's super special and super awesome to share with you. Please hit that like button, guys. Come on back to the channel. I'd love to have you back here on the Stoney Ridge Farm with me. I hope you enjoyed some of the footage that we showed you today building this farm. It's been a massive undertaking, a huge project, and I'm super happy to share any info that you'd like to hear. Please post comments down there. Ask me any question you'd like. I check them, I read them, and I'd love to answer you and help you in any way I possibly can. Thank you guys so much for coming to the Stoney Ridge Farm today. Take care. I got to go move the cows.
Come on down to the Stoney Ridge. Bring your wife and bring your kids. Live a life pure and sweet. That's the way it's supposed to be, Stoney Ridge.
Take them off. Are you kidding me? I didn't attach the quick attach appropriately on the pallet forks. I guess that's what happens when you get in a hurry.